Quinshon Judkins. Now this, Matt, is your favorite Buckeye running back. Is he the second best pure rusher in this class?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a very close third, maybe there, or I'd say they're tied for second is my guy Taj Brooks. But I would say that Judkins, when you look at what he can do, he's proven he can play in a man gap scheme, that he can run in his own scheme. So the versatility of at playing at a high level in both those schemes exists. He's a tackle breaker. When I looked at my finished data, by the way, look at Omarion Hampton, he bounced off, he was able to bounce off 80% of the hits that he had against defensive linemen this year. That's pretty high. Jonte was 7 for 7, by the way, in that at 100%, and Martinez was just above Hampton. Judkins, though, against linebackers is higher than Hampton. He's at an 89% rate, whereas Hampton was an 85% rate. Still good, and with Judkins, he was the best against defensive backs, 11 to 12, 92%, whereas Hampton was 14 to 19 for 74%. So Judkins does all those things well in between the tackles. He has enough burst to get outside. He has the speed to flip the field and maybe even break away at times. And he has pretty good hands that I think will get better in terms of what you're looking for, because the flaws that he has are minor, and even receivers have them when they come into the league and clean it up. He'll be a good leak option, for checkdowns and screenplays, and that's all you're looking for there. And he has shown some propensity to be able to win one-on-one against linebackers with man routes. He's shown the techniques that you're looking for that will translate to that. So yeah, I think that, for me, when you're scoring pre-draft, what's more important is what are the number of things a player can do at a high level that a running back position allots for. And because you don't know where he's going to land. Every once in a while, we do get the stupidity factor in the NFL where a team picks somebody that does not match what the team wants to do because the GM and the coach are in a contest, in a spitting contest, basically, and don't get along well. And the GM decides, we're going to pick this guy because this is my team. And the coach is like, no, this is my offense. And yeah, I know you picked the Sam Laporta type, but I need a run blocker, so I'm going to fatten this guy's behind up and render him useless, And I even wrote that about Laporta a couple years ago, and I had a scout write me laughing, going, "This happens way more often than most people realize." So I appreciate the fact that he said Laporta can be good as long as this dynamic doesn't happen. So Judkins is a better fit for a wider range of teams. And my dog is a linebacker. He does not like Quinshon Judkins. You can hear his protest in the background.
Jacob, what do the numbers say about Judkins? And what do you think like we talk about with Henderson, his teammate, the PPR upside is the thing that kind of elevates Henderson maybe in that format. What do you think Judkins' receiving upside is?
I think that he looks natural as a receiver at times. So if you watch the film, I think that you could project it, but it does have to be a projection. He did not have a route rate. So it was like the percentage of the team's dropbacks he ran a route on was below 50% in all 3 of his seasons. And so I did an exercise trying to find comparisons for Judkins, because not only does he have that, but he has really middling rushing efficiency metrics. And so what I did is I looked up running backs who scored 200 or more PPR points in a season. He did that all 3 seasons at the collegiate level. But they also had a route rate below 50%, and then found running backs who were similar to him in having low rushing success rate, a high stuffed rate, and low yards after contact, which, basically they're getting there through volume. And the running backs that profile similarly since 2017 are Ty Chandler, Bryce Love, Kevin Harris, Izzy Abanikanda, Chase Brown, Braylon Allen, and Nick Chubb. That's not a great list, but it's, Nick Chubb is on that list. Braylon Allen could be good. Is he Nick Chubb? Some people compare him to Nick Chubb. And if he is Nick Chubb, then fine. Maybe none of this will matter. But I do have concerns when I dig into his profile, just making sense of it, because he looks good as a rusher to me. Matt, I want to ask you specifically about 2023, his final season at Ole Miss. He had a 41% rushing success rate and averaged 4.3 yards per rush. And if you compare that to the running backs in Ole Miss's backfield that weren't him, they had 114 carries combined. So it's not a tiny sample size. They had a 55% rushing success rate and 5.8 yards per rush. Do you have any insight as to why the metrics were so bad? 4.3 yards per rush at Ole Miss in 2023.
Yeah, this is the classic Tony Pollard, Ezekiel Elliott debate that happens everywhere, where you get the smaller back who gets a smaller amount of touches, who's speedier, and who's used in scenarios where defenses are thinking possibly pass a little bit more, and they're not high leverage situations where they're not getting the short yardage looks, they're not getting the goal line looks as often.
I actually removed his goal line runs and his short yardage runs, and
okay,
it did
good.
4.4 instead of 4.3. He still only averaged 1 yard before contact, which is
but that's still, when you still look at it though, if you have Quinshon Judkins on, if you had Ezekiel Elliott on the field and it's still like near his prime, and you have early career Tony Pollard on the field in his prime, which one are defenses going to say, oh yeah, we need to pay more attention to that guy? Which ones are going to actually, how do they respond in terms of reading keys? Their early keys are going to be on Elliott more often than their early keys were going to be on Tony Pollard, at least during the earlier part of those looks. Also, how many men in the box and how he handles those types of things. That's why, like, the value of the data that you presented certainly has a good layer of information to it, and it's definitely worth looking into. I would also argue, though, that with the context of how does the player deal with situations that are difficult, and I would argue that, like, I looked at like the Tampa backs last year. People were like begging to get Bucky Irving on the field, but watching those plays, Irving oftentimes received the types of plays that you look at that and go, it really didn't matter who was running the ball in that offense based on the play decisions that they gave and the down and distance decisions that they gave. The other players on that backfield would have earned positive of enough yards that we wouldn't be overly concerned about it.
Yeah, just the last thing I'll add is that he did have the highest career light boxes faced rate of any running back that I evaluated. So this is the percentage of runs that came with 6 or fewer defenders in the box.
Sure.
That shocked me. And it's I just don't know what to make of him. And I worry that, like, if he doesn't have rushing efficiency, he's going to have a hard time getting there in fantasy because the receiving's probably not going to be there.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, is that when you look at it from that standpoint, you also understand that at Ole Miss, they ran more of a spread offense. So the boxes are going to be lighter, but still you're going to see situations where if you have 6 men in the box, that may seem like a light box, but if you only have 5 linemen and you don't have a tight end in there, and it's still from a man-to-man box count scenario, the defense still is going to have the advantage on a lot of those plays. So really, when you scheme it up, sometimes like that context is important.
Okay. That's awesome stuff, guys, and exactly what we were hoping to do.